All right, we're going to cut across to Rajya Sabha live right there. Discussions underway.
Voters of the House, the Secretary General and the presiding officer are seated is considered as the holy sanctum sanctorum of the House. A certain degree of sacredness is attached to this place. In our temples, devotees are allowed only up to this sanctum sanctorum and not beyond. Entering this sanctum sanctorum of the House in itself is an act of sacrilege. It has been happening as a routine for some time. I am distressed by the way this sacredness was destroyed yesterday. While some members sat on the table, some others climbed on the table of the House, perhaps to be more visible with such acts of sacrilege. I have no words to convey my anguish and to condemn such acts. As I spent a sleepless night, last night, I struggled to find out the provocation or reason for forcing this August House to hit such a low yesterday. A discussion on agriculture problems and solutions was listed. There can be difference of opinion and there can be a specific demand from anybody. They could have discussed it in the House, protested and voted against this thing. And you have got every right, members have got every right to demand for it withdrawal also. But it is for the government to act. You can't force the government to do this or not to do this. Different kinds are admitted by chair. The language used by the list of business is drafted in such a way that it is acceptable to all sections of the House without denting the thrust of the issue to be discussed. It happened yesterday too, and the chair has been doing it for a year. I find it difficult to understand as to why the subject was listed in the list of business for yesterday would have prevented any member to raise any issue concerning the farm sector, including 3 farm bills that some members were keen to raise in the House and even demanding their withdrawal. Yesterday was a golden opportunity for the concerned members to have gone on record with their positions on all issues relating to the right of the farmers. But it was not to the... Please have the decency at least, as the chair is saying something, at least to hear it. You may not agree, that's a different matter. The positions on all issues to the right of farmers, but it was not to be, as the sole intention seems to be, not to allow the House to function.
Sir, 35 bills have been passed.
Right at the start of the proceedings of the House yesterday, I have cautioned them not to take up the listed discussion on farm sector. And then, what is worrisome, some members of the House have caught the sad moments of sacrilege in the House yesterday and posted it on the social media. By doing so, they only ended up showing the people to the extent which this August House can degenerate to the newfound competitiveness and aggressive disruption by some sectors. I was very sad. I am deeply anguished, and also the nation also is anguished. As the chairman of the House, I am sacred to visualize implications and consequences of such competitive acts of sacrilege in our temples of democracy. I earnestly appeal to the collective conscience of this House to seriously reflect on what happened yesterday, to explore the remedies. If any failure to do would certainly amount to a setback to our parliamentary democracy, to make it irrelevant, I would like to remind all of you that we begin to celebrate 75 years of our independence in a few days from now. The choice before each one of you is very clear. Either to be best parliamentarian or the worst disruptor. The choice is yours. And I am told that some people have complained about not showing this in the Rajya Sabha. I don't know why Rajya Sabha TV is not showing. This also can be shown. I have no problem. I don't want to run the House like this. I am adjourning the House to meet at 12 a.m.
Well, there you have it. Rajya Sabha House has been adjourned. You saw it. You saw the chair himself, Rajya Sabha's Venkaiah Naidu, the chairperson, who broke down, speaking of the drama, the hangama that ensued just yesterday over discussions. In fact, he condemned the hangama that took place, saying the unruly behavior hasn't allowed the parliament to function. It's been at least 17 days in a row that there's been a logjam in both houses of the parliament. Rajya Sabha chairperson Venkaiah Naidu now breaks down in the floor of the House while he condemns the ruckus that took place, the unruly conduct, the behavior that ensued in the Rajya Sabha. In fact, the Rajya Sabha chairperson today, while speaking just moments ago, broke down in the House, condemning that unruly behavior, the conduct, saying that this is not of a civil house. In fact, the Rajya Sabha chairperson Venkaiah Naidu condemned the ruckus that took place, speaking of members of the parliament standing on top of tables, chairs, creating a ruckus, quite some unruly behavior that ensued in the Rajya Sabha. Venkaiah Naidu there, while he condemns this behavior, breaks down quite literally. Let me cut across to Paulami Saha, joining us more on that. Paulami, it was really sad to see the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, Venkaiah Naidu, breaking down while he condemns that unruly behavior that ensued in the Rajya Sabha yesterday. People atop, in fact, members of the parliament standing on top of tables, chairs, creating a ruckus. Here is the chairperson, while condemning it right at the start of the session, breaks down, quite upset with that kind of behavior. Even then, while he was speaking, there was quite some interruption there by the opposition trying to intervene while he speaks, and then eventually the House is now adjourned.
That's right. Chairman Venkaiah Naidu did get emotional over there while, of course, referring to the incidents that were witnessed in the House yesterday. After the proceedings came to an end for the day, the opposition, in fact, created a lot of hangama and ruckus inside the House. Some members, in fact, out of videos that have been, in fact, posted by some opposition members themselves and other members of Parliament who were witness to what happened. As per those videos, you can see that some members of Parliament, in fact, standing on the desks over there. You can see one member of Parliament, specifically Congress member of Parliament, Pratap Singh Bajwa, flinging a file, a book, or something heavy towards the chair. This obviously happened after the proceedings were over for the day. But yesterday, the opposition had come in towards the fag end of the day, wearing black bands as well, in order to stage their protest, their ongoing protest in a different way. But what you saw is a lot of hangama, a lot of distressful scenes that were witnessed, and that is exactly what the chairman was, of course, getting quite emotional about, saying that a sacrilege was committed. The well of the House is virtually the sanctum sanctorum, like it is, of a temple. This is the temple of democracy, and those scenes, in fact, distressed him so much, anguished him so much, that he, in fact, spent a sleepless night trying to find what was the provocation. If indeed there are differences of opinion, they can be discussed, they can be debated, voting can happen as well, but to, in fact, resort to these sort of scenes which were witnessed yesterday, something which he was very, very upset about. In fact, earlier today, Amit Shah, Prahlad Joshi, Parliamentary Affairs Minister, and Piyush Goyal, leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha, met with the chairman as well, discussed the possibility of taking action against members who've been identified as creating
we saw that the chairperson broke down quite literally. He was in tears while he said he had sleepless night pondering upon what really prompted this ruckus, unruly behavior. I'm going to cut across to Venkaiah Naidu while he speaks right at the start of the session as he breaks down.
Honorable members, I rise in deep anguish to place on record the way this August House is being subjected to sacrilege, and that too propelled by a sense of competition among some sections of the House since the commencement of this monsoon session. Everything said or done violating, hurting or destroying this sacredness of any place amounts to an act of sacrilege. We are a land of temples, churches, mosques and gurudwaras. These are holy places with demarcated sacred areas which are known as sanctum sanctorum. The Parliament, the apex legislature of our country, is regarded as the temple of democracy. The table area where the officers and reporters of the House, the Secretary General and the presiding officer are seated is considered as the holy sanctum sanctorum of the House. A certain degree of sacredness is attached to this place. In our temples, devotees are allowed only up to this sanctum sanctorum and not beyond. Entering this sanctum sanctorum of the House in itself is an act of sacrilege. It has been happening as a routine for some time. I am distressed by the way this sacredness was destroyed yesterday. When some members sat on the table, some others climbed on the table of the House, perhaps to be more visible with such acts of sacrilege. I have no words to convey my anguish and to condemn such acts. As I spent a sleepless night Last night, I struggled to find out the provocation or reason for forcing this August House to hit such a low yesterday. A discussion on agriculture problems and solutions was listed. There can be difference of opinion and there can be a specific demand from anybody. They could have discussed it in the House, protested and voted against this thing. And you have got every right, members have got every right to demand for it, withdrawal also. But it is for the government to act. You can't force the government to do this or not to do this. Different kinds are admitted by chair. Language used by the list of business is drafted in such a way that it is acceptable to all sections of the House without denting the thrust of the issue to be discussed. It happened yesterday too, and the chair has been doing it for a year. I find it difficult to understand as to why the subject was listed in the list of business for yesterday would have prevented any member to raise any issue concerning the farm sector, including 3 farm bills that some members were keen to raise in the House and even demanding their withdrawal. Yesterday was a golden opportunity for the concerned members to have gone on record with their positions on all issues relating to the right of the farmers. But it was not to the... Please have the decency at least, as the chair is saying something, at least to hear it. You may not agree, that's a different matter. The positions on all issues to the right of farmers, but it was not to be, as the sole intention seems to be, not to allow the House to function.
Well, there you have it. The chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, Venkaiah Naidu, breaking down while he condemns the unruly behavior of the Rajya Sabha just yesterday. Quite some ruckus that ensued with Congress MP Pratap Singh Bajwa standing on the table, throwing files at the chair. And here is the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, Venkaiah Naidu, breaking down, literally becoming emotional, shedding tears, saying he's not sure what really prompted that kind of unruly behavior. He's saddened by this kind of culture that's started right since the monsoon session began, mid of July. Until date, it appears that the opposition has managed to sabotage every session in both houses of the parliament. Over to you, Paulami. Here, Venkaiah Naidu, very, very emotional as he condemns this kind of behavior. And it appears that Pratap Singh Bajwa standing on the table, creating that ruckus, throwing the file on the chairs, literally at the chair. This has resulted in Venkaiah Naidu itself, the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, taking this quite emotionally, saying he's not sure what prompted it. And it was unfortunate. The entire opposition came together to celebrate that unruly behavior there.
That's right. The chairman, of course, quite anguished by the scenes that were witnessed in the Rajya Sabha yesterday when opposition members of parliament, in fact, created a lot of hangama after the proceedings for the day were over. They continued to be in the chamber of the House and they continued to shout slogans. Some of them even, in fact, stood on some of the tables over there. We've seen videos that have been, in fact, circulated by members of the parliament themselves who shot those on their phones. And some of those videos show, of course, the sloganeering which is happening, the black clothing that some of them are wearing, the black bands, and then, of course, some of them on the desk, some even climbing onto the table as well. And that's a particular visual that has, of course, been shared by members of parliament themselves, where Pratap Singh Bajwa can be seen, in fact, Congress member of parliament can be seen standing on one of the tables, which is in the area where the secretariat officials sit near the well of the House, and then taking a heavy file of sorts and then flinging it towards the chair that was, of course, empty at that point of time. These were the kind of scenes that were witnessed previously as well on several other occasions. The Rajya Sabha chairman, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu, has in fact, admonished the behavior of the opposition MPs inside the House as well in terms of the protests that they've carried out, sometimes even misbehaving with the marshals who were present in the House. Remember, on one day, he had in fact suspended 6 members of the Trinamool Congress for the rest of the day. In fact, he'd asked them to withdraw from the House because of such unruly behavior by those 6 identified members of the TMC. Today, of course, he is anguished because a whole lot of the opposition members, the entire opposition, in fact, had come together in the Rajya Sabha in order to register their protest, probably realizing that, the monsoon session is coming to an end and they need to take their pitch higher. This has been, of course, their protest medium since the start of this monsoon session, when they've been in the well of the House protesting, and virtually no business has been conducted smoothly or seemingly in an amiable and an amicable way. So clearly this is something which has, of course, anguished the chairman. He was quite upset. He broke down. He did say that the well of the House, where the secretariat officials sit, where the chair is virtually the sanctum sanctorum of the House, and for them to have entered and to have committed what he called sacrilege is something which has deeply saddened him.
Right.
He has not been able to sleep very well. And of course, you saw that the opposition did raise the protest again while he was speaking, and he did say that at least have the decency to listen to the chair. Anguished again, he had to adjourn the House.
We heard that. Paulami, thank you very much for joining us. Highly unfortunate. You have Venkaiah Naidu, the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha itself, breaking down, becoming so emotional while he just started off the session, speaking of the unruly behavior that ensued just yesterday. Venkaiah Naidu today adjourning the House after ruckus began, even today, soon as he started off.
I don't want to run the House like this. I am adjourning the House to meet at 12 p.m.
Now, the Parliament on Tuesday did witness absolute chaos and ruckus by the opposition demanding rollback of the farm laws and discussion on the Pegasus scandal. Here's a small insight into that pandemonium that took place yesterday.
Hooliganism, sloganeering, pandemonium, hurling the rule book at the chairperson, shouting from the top of a table. Don't look away, viewers. This is our temple of democracy. These are the politicians we have trusted our lives with. And the man on the table is Congress MP Pratap Singh Bajwa. They demand a discussion on Snoopgate and repeal of 3 farm laws.
ये सरकार अंधी हो चुकी है और मैं किसान भाइयों को इस बात की विश्वास दिलाना चाहता हूं, आप अपनी जंग बाहर जारी रखो, हम अपनी जंग सारी ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज और विशेष तौर इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस आपकी जंग पार्लियामेंट के फ्लोर पर लड़ेंगे.
The BJP is calling the ruckus an insult to democracy.
जैसे ही बहस प्रारंभ हुई है तो मांग करते हैं कि कृषि कानूनों पर चर्चा हो, और जब चर्चा होने लगी तो टेबल पर चढ़कर फाइल फेंकने लगे. ये बहुत ही दुखद है और बहुत ही अपमानजनक है, और ये केवल संसद का अपमान नहीं, इस देश की जनता का अपमान है.
It's been 21 days since the monsoon session of Parliament started. The opposition has accused the centre of blocking debates on farm laws and Pegasus hacking.
इसलिए हम लोगों ने विरोध किया कि चर्चा बार बार कराने का कोई मतलब नहीं है. चर्चा कराइए बिल की वापसी के ऊपर. ये तीनों काला कानून वापस कैसे होगा, चर्चा इस बात की होनी चाहिए.
The BJP claims they are ready to have a discussion but blames the opposition for the lack of debate.
जितना इनका बजट था उससे ज्यादा तो किसानों के खाते में मोदी जी की सरकार डाल चुकी है. ये किसान विरोधी हैं और पिछले 2 दशक में जितने भी आयोग बने सबकी रिकमेंडेशंस के आधार पर ये बिल बनाए गए हैं. कृषि सुधार
संसद सड़क पर बैठे हमारे किसानों की पीड़ा नहीं समझ रही है ना, यानी कि संसद की गरिमा का सत्ता प्रतिष्ठान को ख्याल नहीं है.
Now consider this. Each minute of running Parliament costs 2,50,000 rupees. Every wasted hour is 1,50 lakh rupees down the drain. While no one questions the opposition's right to ask questions, the methods employed by the opposition are certainly questionable. Bureau Report, India Today.